Autism is a common diagnosis in children across the country and in our community. Without help and early intervention, it could lead to a number of other challenges. Erskine Oglesby and Dave Buck join me now with more on the 13th Annual Autism Conference. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Let's talk about this. When we talk about, the CDC says 1 in 36 children are diagnosed with autism. This is really common.
Right, it's more common than we realize, and that's what we're doing, is getting better at understanding exactly how many autistic people there are. In fact, in Chattanooga metro area, let's say there's 540,000, the census said, people, 16,000 of those individuals are probably autistic, given the CDC.
So do you think that's because we're getting better, like with medicine period and screenings, that we're finding this, or is it just that more people are developing this condition?
There's some really cool research that shows that we just are getting better at diagnosing it, where more people are aware of it compared to 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. More people are able to do the diagnostics. Teachers, parents, your church members, family members, they recognize autistic signs now, and now people are going to get assessed. We're getting better at finding out what the true rate really is.
One of the things too, so you all have a conference and talk about, who will be attending this conference, who it's geared toward, and what they're going to get out of this conference.
Sure, thanks. So this conference was started by parents like 13 years ago. It's our 13th annual, because there just wasn't enough information about autism in our region. And so they had speakers come in, maybe a couple hundred people at the Reed House, and now we're gonna have 600 people at this conference this year, our 13th annual. But it's parents mostly, but then teachers started taking off from school and going to it, so we created a whole track of talks just for teachers. Autistic adults started going, so we created a talk that is specifically for autistic adults. And then there's a Spanish language track, so if Spanish isn't your first language, we have a couple talks for those individuals. And then plus there's 70 plus exhibitors, people who have autism related services or products that are all together, so people can go visit them and ask questions.
And that's one of the things too, talking about knowing the help that's available in this community.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that's one reason why I work so hard with the Autism Center, because being the father of a son with autism, and back when he was diagnosed, it was like 1 in 500,000. Now you see that gap has dropped tremendously. And one of the things that lacked then was support and education. And as over time, organizations like the Chattanooga Autism Center is bringing to the forefront. So it's not so much a stigma when your child begins to act a little interesting at a young age, where there's a reality to it, and that there's resources and assistance available to help you work through that. And that's what's really important about this conference. It gives you all those kind of things to look at, and it also gives you an opportunity to network with citizens, with people with your same interests. And that's what I've gotten most of it out of the years, is that networking possibility, knowing that you're not in this alone, and that this is a reality that face our youth and adults in our society.
And that's one of the things too that's so important, Erskine, when talking about you're not alone in this. And if you will, tell us just a little bit about your journey, like when your son was diagnosed, at what age, and just some of the struggles that you faced, your family.
Well, when he was diagnosed, we knew we had some issues when he was about 4 years old. And back then, there wasn't autism. Anybody that had any kind of stigmatism to them, they was mentally retarded. So initially, my son was classified as mentally retarded, and that was very hurtful. So Cheryl and I did everything we can to make him feel comfortable and look for the resources. One thing with my journey is you really had to go out and find the resources. And finally, when we moved to North Carolina, we went to the North Carolina Medical Center Children's Hospital, and they had a doctor that specialized in youth behaviors. And when he met Ryan, he said, "Oh, your son has autism." Now, at this time, he was like 16 years old, so he went like 12 years with that stigma of mentally retarded. And being accepted in schools, the challenge of getting him in like day camps and summer camps, because physically, you look at him, he was just a normal kid. He just wasn't progressing academically and socially as other kids. So from those experiences, Cheryl and I have been able to mentor other parents who has come to the realization that their child has autism. And these are the kind of things you have to go through because the autism spectrum is so expansive. You know, they go from those that are, you know, highly intelligent, got jobs, work every day. Like my son, he works every day, very independent. You know, we're blessed from that perspective. But then you have some that has more critical needs and more resources. So this conference and an organization like the Chattanooga Autism Center is important to our community, particularly when you come to the realization that your child has autism and it's not an end of the world kind of situation, that there are resources out there for you.
There's help available. There's help available. And like you said, that spectrum. And Dave, in wrapping up, just talk a little bit more about that. We talked about boys diagnosed more than girls.
Yeah,
why is that?
I think partly because the research was done on boys. And so once they started examining females and women, they started to see, oh, it presents a little bit differently. In fact, this conference will have a talk on women and autism. It's definitely underdiagnosed in women. That's what we're finding out.
And just giving people hope who's watching this today, that their child can live a fulfilling life with autism.
Oh, yeah, that goes without question. In fact, a lot of autistic individuals are proud about being autistic, and they created their own groups and community, and it's fantastic. They don't want to be changed. They don't want to be fixed. They might ask for some support and understanding and inclusion, but they are autistic and proud of it. So I think that's something that is part of my journey, getting to have so many autistic friends and learning that part of the community has been great.
And there's a track that addresses that, how to get socially relevant relationships, growing into adulthood and being able to look at your health. And there's also an important track is the legal aspect of it, you know, whether there's conservatorship or power of attorney, and teaching caregivers their responsibility towards that. Because that's very critical, especially when you're making health decisions
for someone else. That is so important. Well, gentlemen, thank you both for being here. They're very important topics, impact so many families touched by this. Erskine, thanks for sharing your story with us. And Dave, of course, thanks for all you do in this community with raising awareness and helping families with autism.